a try-hard. Are you a try-hard?
That's why I get burned out.
So would you say you're a try-hard?
Yeah. 100%.
You've always been a try-hard.
Yeah.
Like,
I care.
Give me an example of what
it,
makes you a try-hard. It could be when you're a kid. It could be now. It could be, when you're trying to date girls and you weren't cute yet. Like when you had like big old glasses or something like that.
To me, it's about authenticity. To me.
Okay.
If I ask you to play a game of checkers with me, I want you to give it your all. I don't want you to just play to play.
Oh, yeah.
You're wasting my time. You're wasting your time. Nobody's getting any better.
Yeah.
Like, what the hell are we doing?
I do agree with that.
And so when I come from that kind of perspective, it's like, why would I give anybody less than everything that I've got in any situation? I'm doing a disservice to them when I don't. And once I made that connection, it never leaves you, And so if there's a teacher in the class and she's teaching and she's giving it her all, she's doing her part to try to get us to learn some information. You can tell that she cares. There's a little bit of passion in the dissertation. Then I'm going to give you the attention that you deserve. And maybe my friends are going to be looking around, doodling all over the place, but I'm going to be locked in because, I feel like you deserve that. I feel like if I was up there, I'm just trying to give people what I want in return. So yeah. I want it all. I want maximum effort. And because I'm willing to give maximum effort, I don't think I have a problem demanding that. Because at the end of the day, every leader, a good leader, is going to say, I would never demand out of you what I would not do myself in that situation. So
yeah.
So yes, always been a try hard, man.
Man, I feel like you're locked in with me right now.
Okay, talk to me.
Why would I be looking around while you're giving me your dissertation, and telling me about why you're a try hard, when I'm simply a try hard because I have to be. I just feel like you can't do it any other way. Like you said, why would you waste time? Why would you waste your own time? Maybe I tend to be, I think I start self-centered, like it's all about what I want and what I want to experience. But then after I develop myself and I try hard, and I do my best, then I think about like how that's helping everybody else too. I feel like I can't even think about everybody else yet until I'm giving my all, if you're on the basketball team and the ball's going out of bounds and you can't get that ball, there's no way you can get that ball. Maybe you can though, right? And if you go and get it and you save it and then the team scores because of that and nobody else would even, most other players would not have even tried to save that. To me, that's just total bonus. You just totally added to the product and made the team better because of that.
I'll stop here. I'll say, if you go for that impossible ball and you don't get it, and people see how serious you are about what you're doing, how does that not permeate the rest of the bench? How does that not permeate everybody else on the team?
Yeah.
And so when you give maximum effort and a couple of people come together and give it all they got, I truly believe magic happens and you can do the work of 3 or 4 with just 1 or 2 going all out and really being locked in and giving a damn.
Wow. Can you imagine how much we're making Neil better just by how hard we are trying here at this Hangin' with the Homeboys podcast version coming out on September 18th, 2024?
Yes.
Neil,
I can't imagine. I do imagine.
Say Hangin' with the Homeboys. Are we recording?
Yes.
Okay. All right, he said yes. He said yes, I'll say it. What is this podcast, Neil?
Hangin'
with the Homeboys. You guys are here. Thanks for coming. We have our normal segments that we like to run through. Chris is here. What's your name, sir?
Yeah, Chris Glenn.
Yeah.
And you guys get to see me and Luke on the same screen
Yeah.
Right now, we're all in here together, so we're trying a new format. Let us know what you think about it.
I'm Luke
if we're sexy
Thompson,
enough.
and we are we're just co-anchors now. This is like
Yeah.
a news show. We're
you
also
go.
changing it to a news show. And breaking today are the same segments that we always do.
You got that
Ready for
right.
those?
Yes.
All right.
But speaking of news show,
Oh, yeah.
Connie Chung just went viral.
Whoa.
And that's all I'm going to say.
Blast
Just look
from
it
the
up.
past.
Just look it up.
Huh.
Yeah, it's really funny.
Now I'm be curious the whole rest of the show. All right. Let me look under here. We don't have a teleprompter, so we go with paper.
That's right.
We have our home field advantage where we like to talk about, some new news or insights for buyers and sellers. Also an agent section. We like to come around to Homeyology where we touch on industry stats or industry concepts. Full House, where we might discuss a cool design trend, and that's an homage. Is that an homage when you tribute to something?
Yes.
Well, that's from the show Full House. It's not easy or hard to decipher that. And then we have House Party, where we try to bring something funny to you from our lives or something pretty interesting from this real estate world. So here we are. Let's go.
That's right.
Home field advantage.
Okay.
Usually the visitor is the first one to make a play, but you're not the visitor. You're
right.
the home team. So tell us what you've got going on. Wait. I'm the visitor. I'm going to go first. Guys, we
Okay.
didn't rehearse this. What I want to tell you about is the Fed is meeting today.
That's right.
This is pretty important for buyers, especially because that means that interest rates are going to be changing sometime soon. But they have been changing. For the past week or 2 weeks, interest rates have been coming down. They're to the point where they are lower than they have been for, somebody told me 16 months. I've looked at the graph. They're not lower than they've been in 2 years, but they are lower than they've been in about a year and a half. And today or yesterday, the 30-year conventional mortgage was 6.038%. Basically. I mean, surely there are companies that are doing it for less. Usually that's the case. And the FHA rate is even lower. But we were talking about what that means for a buyer. What should you do today? What if you go under contract? What if you went under contract this weekend? What would you do then? I mean, would you just lock in your rate? Or that's probably not the thing to do, right?
Well, if you're dealing with somebody at a bank that's in a loan officer position, they should be talking to you about this heavily, okay? Because essentially we are kind of gambling with what we believe is going to happen tomorrow, and we're trying to figure that out today. So there's a lot of news about what the Federal Reserve actually considers when they decide whether or not to lower their Federal Reserve rate, which is the amount of money that they charge the banks to get the money, okay? The banks don't make the money. They are essentially borrowing the money from the federal government, and the rate that they pay in return for borrowing that money is the basis in which they have to charge plus some profit by the time it gets to you, the end user. And so
That's a really good description.
well, thank you. And because we know what the Federal Reserve is considering when they make these decisions, all the metrics that they have to look at, those things are public. The banks have been anticipating that the information is good enough from the Federal Reserve's perspective that they are going to lower the rate. And so rather than waiting for that rate from the Fed to be lowered, they started lowering the rates that they actually charge us early. Because at the end of the day, this is still capitalism and a supply and demand business. So sometimes you got to slip in and make a little bit less money to overall get as many contracts as you possibly can that can make up for it. So maybe you don't make as much per deal, but the fact that you're slipping in at a rate that's lower allows you to have more deals that makes the bottom line okay.
It's a calculated risk. They're sort of getting ahead of the curve, because what's the difference if a bank makes a loan a month ahead or a month ago that's at the same rate that it's actually going to be today? They don't really lose a whole bunch of money, and like you said, they beat everybody else to the punch and maybe got some business that they weren't going to get.
That's right.
And, one of and you mentioned, or we talk about our Federal Reserve, but other things that have happened internationally also clue them in, because Great Britain reduced their interest rate, I don't know, a month or 2 months ago. And I believe Canada did that as well.
Yeah,
so these
their
are
Federal
indicators.
Reserves.
Yeah. And our Federal Reserve, the United States one, has been, we're a leader in the world economy, and they've been very cautious, and they've been indicating that they would reduce the rates probably since, we've been hearing about this since February of 2024, and then it just kept getting pushed back and pushed back and pushed back. And when we got to July, we really thought it was going to happen. Didn't happen then, but it's about to happen now.
Yes, and guys, they meet 6 times a year, once every other month, okay? These decisions get made, and, despite what you might be seeing on some of your commercials right now, the inflation that we felt after COVID was a worldwide phenomenon. This was not something that was United States specific. Okay?
The U.S. is doing pretty well.
And when it comes to bouncing back from the inflation, we have absolutely been a world leader as far as getting the numbers down faster than other countries that are also big and economically relevant. So that's just one aside that
examples of inflation I've heard about. Of course, Russia is having huge problems with inflation, but also I heard about Japan having big issues with inflation. You don't hear about them having, a lot of other huge events that are causing high inflation. The United States inflation, I believe, was lower than other countries, and we're recovering faster. So we're leading the world in the comeback.
That's right. So the question that people want to know is, once they actually officially today, and probably sometime after lunch, we'll know that what if they lowered the rate, how much they lowered it by. Are we going to see even more banks, or maybe the bank that has already dug in? Are they going to go a little bit lower? And so a good loan officer should be talking to you about that. Hey, this is what happens if we actually lock in right now. And this is what happens if we wait. How do you feel about gambling? And, hopefully they'll let the end user, the buyer, decide what they want to do.
Are you okay with the float? They call it floating. You're going to float and wait to lock your rate in hopes that the rate comes down by the time you need to lock your interest rate.
That's right.
Some other contracts, I think in the Kansas City contract, I don't know if it actually says the word float, but you have I think there's a date in there by which you must lock the rate or finalize your loan and all that. And we don't have that in our contract around here. It's just not a contractual thing that we're observing from the other side of the transaction as the sellers. But if you were a buyer and you bought this weekend, hopefully you did not lock in your rate, because there's a good chance that by Friday or Monday or Wednesday, the rate might be a good deal lower, and that can affect your payment a good deal. If it's 0.25%, we don't have the math on that, but that could affect your payment by $50, $100, something like that, depending on the size of your mortgage payment.
There you go. So just something to guys to keep you with the home field advantage. Think about that. If you know anybody that's in the market, ask them, what's going on with their lock-in rate. How are they feeling?
If you're an agent, we want to talk about home field advantage for you too, and we want to talk about your experience out on the field with the buyers and the new rules, the new buyer agency agreement and touring agreement requirements. Has your experience been just like you thought it would be, or has it been a little bit different in some ways?
It's been like I thought it would be, but I guess the question that I would actually ask you is, do you know any other brokerages who are doing what we are doing, which is having a dedicated website in which we can look up any house that's being listed by our brokerage? You can see what the compensation is offered. That's no longer allowed to be on the MLS. So as long as we have a dedicated website that has nothing to do with MLS, it makes it very, very easy to figure out how much my brokerage might be getting paid on a particular deal. Have you heard of anybody else doing that, or have you been having to ask absolutely everybody?
Yeah, no. I have yet to be told by any other agent with any other company where I can find their commission offered to buyer agents being posted somewhere. On the first day, we were ready. When someone asked me what the commission was, I just sent them the link, sent them a graphic that we had with the link. And to be honest, I haven't even been asked by anybody yet. And there are agents that are showing my houses or my listings. I've had 10. Not a single one has asked me what our commission rate is. And I don't know if that's because they already know or they're just not in the habit of actually asking for what the commission is. If I'm showing, I'm texting because I want to find out before I accidentally indicate that we're writing an offer or something like that. So have you seen, is there a commission website out there for any other company in your experience?
No, I haven't seen that. And listen, I like a world where us as the agents communicate. I think it's good. I think communication is definitely good, but we're also talking about clients' money. We're talking about our buyers and how much money they're going to have to come to the table with. And I'd like to have an idea of what that conversation is going to be like before they fall in love with any particular house. I need to be able to have that information. And most of the time I get it quickly, but there's those times that I either don't get anything back or I have to call somebody else to get the information. And it's off-putting at the minimum and just annoying,
It's one thing that we should note is that it's very useful to know what that commission is going to be. Like before you're showing that house or before you've decided to write an offer. I mean, as the listing agent, if you're letting these buyer agents know, that's going to take some of the pressure off of them, because with this new touring agreement that's out there, with the habit that buyer agents have had of being leery of asking for the buyers to sign the buyer agency agreement, with this buyer agency agreement actually having percentages in it about how much they're going to be paid, right? There are some buyer agents out there that are willing to show houses without any kind of agreement for commission, which means that if they're using a touring agreement like the one that's out there for Zillow, and they go meet somebody at a house, have them sign this touring agreement with no commission in it, and that buyer likes that house, now you're going to have to negotiate with that buyer in the buyer agency agreement about how much commission they're going to pay you. And that's okay. I mean, that's sort of the spirit of the lawsuit. But if you know what the sellers are offering to the buyer agent, that's going to ease that conversation, that first interaction that the buyer has with their buyer.
And let's be honest too, since we're talking about inflation and an inflationary environment, we're dealing with a lot of people where cash is the biggest impediment to get them to the closing table, to get them even thinking about buying a house. They say, yeah, my credit's all right, but I heard you have to have a lot of money down, and I don't have that. So there are loan products that have grant money, that can help a person pay for their down payment, pay for some of their closing costs. And then when you combine that with the fact that there are sellers out there willing to give seller concessions in which they can pay for closing costs and things of that nature, we've had clients that literally cannot buy without all of those things happening, they barely have any money.
Here's an example. Buyer just dips their toe in the market. They call a buyer agent or an agent and ask to see a house. That buyer agent calls the seller agent to try to find out what the commission is, text them. They don't tell them. The buyer agent goes and meets the buyer at the house. The buyer has to have a conversation with the buyer agent about how much the commission is going to be. Agent doesn't know that this house is actually offering commission. This buyer doesn't have $3,000 or $6,000 or $9,000 to pay commission. This conversation doesn't go very well. Buyer takes their toe out of the market and doesn't buy at all. That is not a good situation, and that's the result of the listing company not letting the buyer agent know what commission is being offered up front. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, yeah.
We don't want that to happen at all. Nobody should be scared out of buying a house, especially by a fee that they might not even have to pay.
Come on. Yeah, so we need other brokerages to be a little bit more proactive. And here's the deal. The truth of the matter is this, we're talking about the United States leading the world, and being of this and being of that. Well, honestly, I feel like our brokerage at Coldwell Banker, we're kind of leading the industry when it comes to what makes sense and taking a hard look at ourselves and what we can do to serve our clients better, to serve the industry better. And I do believe by this time next year, this conversation will be much different. Everybody will have realized that what we are doing makes the most sense and is actually lower maintenance than having all these phone calls and conversations going on, and God forbid somebody gives you the wrong information, or they say the wrong percentage, they get it mixed up with another house that they have listed. Ooh. And then when it comes time to actually sign the contract that says how much is going to get paid, maybe a tough conversation comes up, so there will be mistakes like that made that'll make what we are doing look that much more attractive for everybody else. Now, before this started, I would have told you that the copycat thing would have happened before Christmas, but now that I'm in it, I'm pushing that back another 6 months. I'm saying
April Fool's Day. So yeah, what Chris is saying too is with Coldwell Banker, we have another engine that runs us too. We have a parent company, and they own some of the other big name brokerages in the country as well. And our parent company is advising that we ask sellers to offer a commission to buyer agents as well. So don't think it's just Chris and I and whoever's behind the scenes right here coming up with this stuff. This is a proven way of doing business that's been effective for decades.
That's right.
So that engine, it's nice for us to have that engine behind us. In our Homeyology section, I wanted to talk about Chris's engine a little bit, a concept of being a realtor and being very proactive and being a little reactive, and what stages of your career have taken you to those places?
Well, I mean, honestly, what we're talking about to me is that inner energy, that inner steam that makes you wake up and look for problems to solve, to stop things from getting bad before they do, to schedule out the entire closing the day that you get the offer accepted, and just to have everything mapped out. That's what a good proactive agent is going to do. But I can tell you, when you're juggling a lot of people, and it becomes hard to wake up with that steam every single morning. And some days, just getting through the day becomes the number one priority. And if anything, now, of course, our number one rule is to do no harm. We're not talking about completely forgetting that you had a damn closing and just sleeping through it because you had a long depression nap. We're not going to that extreme. But what it is I think every agent knows that there's seasons, there's times of the year, depending on their own home life, the actual season it is of the year, in which they feel like they're 10 feet tall and bulletproof, and that any problem they can see way down the line and figure it out and have a way to get it cleared up. And then there's some times to where it's just like, I'm going to go out here on the field, and if a ball comes my way, I'm going to do the best to catch it. But all that strategizing and saying, oh, that guy, he's left-handed, and I watched the tape, and he normally hits it up. I'm not doing all of that. I don't have time for all that. I'm just going to get out on the field, and I'm going to do my best. And normally that gets me through. And when you're in that mode, it is tough to do anything but serve the people you are already serving. There is no looking out for other business. Other business might stumble into you, but as far as you having a plan to do the things that you said you were going to do when you had the energy, maybe sending mailers out to your whole neighborhood, or shaking some hands, or making some phone calls to your sphere of influence, those things become so much harder, if not impossible, to do when you're in that reactive state. And, I wanted to know if you ever find yourself in those things, and, maybe the power of some of the rituals that we all are trying to do, what it actually has when you actually do it,
When you say are you asking about some of our listeners?
I'm talking about the guy with a mic in his. I'm talking about the guy with a mic in his damn face.
Well, yes, definitely.
And we 17 years experience.
We want to hear from you guys too,
yes.
Of course.
Yes, please.
And the thing, one thing that a concept of real estate is that you are not